Hey there, everyone. It's Mazzy here. Hello, vinyl community and other viewers who have been watching my channel. New subscribers, I really appreciate new viewers. Even if you're not a subscriber, I appreciate you watching these. This is a different video. It's a little special because it's sort of it's a card catalog in a way. It's an index. It's a table of contents. I've been getting a lot of requests lately for me to go through my collection and pull certain artists and do a showcase on my collection, a sort of discography, whether it's a full discography or whatever I have on that particular artist. I've done a bunch of these in the past, so I decided this might be a fun time to do an index, Mazzy's Music Index. I don't know if that's going to be the name of it, but here you go. If you look down below in the description, there is a link to a playlist on my channel, or you can just go to the front page of this YouTube channel, and the playlist is on featured artists. And I've done, God, a number of features on singer-songwriters, rock bands, a couple that are thematic features. So I'm going to show some of them just to give you like a visual representation of these. And if you like any of these artists, there is a corresponding video. Go check it out, because I realize I have a lot of new viewers over the last, few weeks and months and even the last year who never watched those earlier videos. So they're there. So go check them out. I've selected one album to represent each artist. And these are amongst my favorite of these artists, not necessarily the definitive first choice, depending on the mood I'm in. But I think they sort of represent very favorites of these artists. So let's go through them fairly quickly. The Byrds. I have a whole overview of the entire Byrds discography because I pretty much have everything, including some posthumous live releases and comps. This is Fifth Dimension from 1966. Of course, it has the great song of 8 Miles High, sort of the first psychedelic song influenced by John Coltrane, amongst others. The first album by the great Leonard Cohen on Columbia Records. Love this record. There's a whole discography on pretty much his entire discography. I think I have everything. One of my favorite bands, obviously the Beatles, the Kinks, and the Byrds are the three top bands. This is the Kinks. This is the American Reprise, Kink Size. This is not my favorite, but it's high up there, All Day and All the Night. Tired of Waiting for You, and this is a beautiful copy on this Steamboat label. Anyway, if you want to see the whole Kinks discography, check that playlist out. Of course, Van Morrison. I have an entire pretty extensive discography video on Van Morrison. St. Dominic's Preview is amongst my very favorite songs, like Listen to the Lion, the opening Jackie Wilson Said, Almost Independence Day, this long, meandering, beautiful, sort of folky, jazzy songs by Van Morrison. I've done one on Joni Mitchell early on, and this is one of my favorite albums of hers, Clouds. I could pick almost any Joni Mitchell album. I even like the middle period jazz stuff starting in the mid-70s, Hissing from Summer Lawns, Hejera, that starts sort of that fusion where jazz artists like Paco and Wayne Shorter are brought on, but her folk guitar stuff just can't be beat. So Joni Mitchell, there's a whole video on Joni Mitchell. Of course, an artist who I think is possibly one of the best American songwriters of the last 50 years is Randy Newman. Randy Newman, of course, has done a lot of scores for motion pictures and for animated features. And Sail Away is by far my favorite record. I'd say Good Old Boy is maybe next. And he's just hysterical. He writes about politics. He writes about social history of cities and events and historic references. And of course, Randy Newman, check him out. Whole feature on him. There's a feature on my Jimi Hendrix catalog, which includes a trip on his birthday. I think it was his birthday, the anniversary of his birthday. And it showcases just south of Seattle where Jimi Hendrix was buried. So you can see his gravesite in one of those videos. But obviously, his first American album, Are You Experienced? First UK album. This is a reissue, but there is a whole discography of my collection of Jimi Hendrix, including a lot of the posthumous and live box sets. Donovan, to me, one of the great pop psychedelic folk songwriters and record makers of the 60s into the 70s. Of course, Where You Love Like Heaven. Some of these albums were split apart from a box set from a garden. Unfortunately, the UK, his records didn't come out as planned originally, a lot of them, but some of the greatest singles of the 60s, Sunshine Superman, Jennifer Juniper, Where Your Love Like Heaven, and of course I did one on the catalog of Pink Floyd. This is by far my favorite Pink Floyd album cover with the cow. Obviously, originally it had no type on it, but Adam Hart Mother, incredible record. There's a whole Pink Floyd discography in the playlist, so again, check the playlist. Amongst my favorite bands too, Procol Harum, Shine On Brightly, their second album, and their third album, Salty Dog, are amongst my favorite. I bounce back and forth, which is my favorite. This is an incredible album, a Salty Dog. There's a Mo Fidelity version of this, which is just stunningly beautiful. And there is a whole playlist of my Procol Harum discography catalog. Of course, there's nothing like a Grateful Dead concert. I've done several videos on the Grateful Dead. Of course, they're in the discography and the featured artist. There's a whole discography of my collection of the Grateful Dead, including some of the live stuff. This is their early 70s double Grateful Dead self-titled record. And this included, which I don't have here, round stickers, the Grateful Dead Skull and Roses stickers in all the original versions of this. I have a lot of different videos on San Francisco and my experience and shows and things, but there is again in the playlist, if you're paying attention, video there. So the Mazzy's Music Index, contents, archive of my featured artist videos. Go check them out if you like any of these artists. Rolling Stones, there's obviously a Rolling Stones collection video. There's also a Beatles versus Stones. Come on, you can't really compare. You can't really, it's not good to pit one band against the other, but it's the cliche Beatles Stones. Of course, Ry Cooder. Now, I have several Ry Cooder videos. There's a Ry Cooder of his discography. Paradise and Lunch is amongst my favorite. This is from 1974, and the collaboration with jazz pianist Earl Father Hines on Diddy Wah Diddy is just so sublime. Love this. If you like Ry Cooder, my favorite guitar player, there's also there's several Ry Cooder videos. There's one on Ry Cooder collaborations and soundtracks. This is one he did with the great Cuban guitar player Manuel Galban. If you know Buena Vista Social Club, they collaborated, but this is sort of Cuban, sexy, soulful guitar playing that's somewhat surf-oriented. This is still available on non-Setch, and this is a highly recommended record. It just got this great, twangy sound. But Ry Cooder and Manuel Galban, Mambo Suendo. Ry Cooder, check out that playlist. Someone who doesn't get a lot of notice, and if you don't know this, you might want to look at the playlist on Pearls Before Swine featuring Tom Rap. Pearls Before Swine is sort of a neo-folk psychedelic from the late 60s. They originally signed to the small independent jazz label ESP Records, and then he was signed to Warner Brothers. This is a Warner Brothers album, The Use of Ashes. Very folky, very low-key, very dirge-like, little sort of almost depressing, but beautiful, intimate folk music. I have every record they've done on ESP, all their Warner Brothers records, as well as Tom Rapp's solo records. One with a song called Rocket Man, not to be confused with the Elton John Rocket Man. That is on Blue Thumb Records. And of course, amongst my favorite artists is Nick Cave. I don't have his entire discography, but there is a feature on the records of Nick Cave that I have. And this is Boatman's Call, my very favorite. And this is more of a low-key, piano-based, not high intensity, but very moody, very sexual, religious, iconic record. And it's by far my favorite record. And I think if anyone wants to get into Nick Cave, this is a good starting point. This is such a beautiful record. Bob Dylan. I've done several Bob Dylan videos, and in the joint section, there's a video of some favorites with my Beatle buddy, Mr. Bacon. And there is a feature on my collection from the Bob Dylan bootleg series. This particular one is the best of the cutting edge. I also have the big, large CD box, but in terms of the vinyl version, this is a great collection. So there is a feature in the playlist of featured artists on Bob Dylan, and there's several Bob Dylan videos. Of course, my favorite writer and singer of the seedy dark side of LA and world, political insurrections and war zones and personal tragedies. Warren Zevon, his second Asylum album, Excitable Boy. Of course, everyone knows Werewolves from London, which isn't even in the top probably 25 of the songs I love of this man, the late Warren Zevon. Extensive catalog. I have everything of Warren Zevon. Again, check the playlist in the featured artists, and if you like Warren Zevon, see some more of his records. Someone that a lot of people don't know about, and I've sort of promoted her every once in a while, indie artist from the early 2000s, and that's Scout Niblett. She's also an astrologer, so if you want your chart done, believe she's in Portland, Oregon these days. A British artist, indie darling, did some of her albums have collaborations with Bobby Prince, Billy, whatever his name is. She plays drums, guitar, kind of wild. Go check it out just to see if you like it or not. I think she's really interesting, and I've seen her live several times, about 10 plus years ago. She hasn't done anything in the last 8 or 9 years, but Scout Niblett. I did a fun video. I have a pretty decent collection, not definitive and not every single one, but of the Smiths 12-inch singles and EPs. And I did a video on the Smiths cover artists. If you know what I'm talking about, they always would say on the back of these videos, cover star. This is Jean Marais, and usually what happens is Morrissey chose frames from classic European cinema. This is cover star, Viv Nicholson, shot from Spin, Spin, Spin. So these are just two, but you can see a whole video on my whole collection. This is Heaven Knows I'm Miserable Now, Girl Afraid and Suffer Little Children. Many of them are UK, most of my collection on these. And this is This Charming Man, backed with Accept Yourself and Wonderful Woman. I love these, and thank God I didn't purge these in the mid-90s. The Smiths cover star video, go check it out. Another artist I've done a feature on is a favorite political folk post-punk artist, and that's Billy Bragg, folk punk. Also, worked with Wilco on the Mermaid series of the Woody Guthrie lyrics that they did. Great artist. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, this is a collaboration with the archivist and myself. So definitely go to those earlier videos. And if you want to see featured artist videos, that's a good place to go on my channel, because they don't really pop up once they've been out a year or more or something in the same way, unless you're looking for a particular artist. Of course, a favorite of mine, Kate Bush, The Dreaming. This is like a big turning point for her. This is an incredible record. Hounds of Loves are more commercial and is a fantastic record. I think I would give an edge to this record because it's just so creative and was so different. And look at that cover. Love, love, love her. There is a feature on Kate Bush discography. I do have a feature on David Sylvian in Japan, because I saw Japan when my first trip to England in 1978, literally just happenstance walking into a bar club, kind of a notch up from a pub. I think it was called Dingwalls. Saw Japan. They were kind of glammy, a little bit rock and roll. And of course, David Sylvian and his brother were in the band. And David Sylvian went on his own and became very esoteric, very fusion of electronic, of experimental, did albums with Ryuichi Sakamoto, Robert Fripp, and many others. And I love his solo catalog. His album Blemish is amongst my favorites, and that's like a holy grail for me on vinyl. And the vinyl is long out of print, goes for $400 or $500 now. But this album, a promo I got way back of him and Holger Suke. His stuff's very surreal, very intimate, very spacey, and his low baritone voice is really sexy. So there's a whole discography on David Sylvian and the band Japan. Another one, I did a feature on Raymond Scott. Who the hell is Raymond Scott? I think that was the name of it. But again, go into the feature section in featured artists in the playlist. It's linked below, and you'll see sort of an early pioneer using the Moog synthesizer. Worked on jingles, TV and radio jingles from the 50s into the 60s. He made a series of Lull Your Baby to Sleep records, and just really interesting. His company, Manhattan Research, was pretty incredible. They've reissued these records over the years. And these are Three Willow Park, Electric Music from Inner Space, 1961 to 1971. But go to that video. If you want to know more about any of these artists, click the link below and just, put on the playlist, have a Maz Fest, have a Mazzy Fest of featured artists. What else do you have to do this weekend? So on this Mazzy's featured artist index, there are a couple of features that are thematically based of records and labels. And I'm not going to name them all right here, but go check it out. One of my favorites, and I've done two different versions. One includes how to make the perfect martini. So if you want to, scroll around and find that, all the power to you. But there's a series of Verve reissues that came out. I'm going to just in the 70s, from 1976 to 81, I believe. Most of them, they're all analog, and most of them were mastered at the time by Robert Ludwig. I think he did 90% of them. And there are these 2 sets like this one, and they have cover illustration art, double albums. Dizzy Gillespie and Roy Eldridge is one. The recordings, a lot from the 40s, 50s, and beyond. Some go beyond that into the 60s. This is a Ella Fitzgerald, Rodgers and Hart songbook also. And this is a Bill Evans trio. And some of them are live, some unreleased stuff. But this is a great way to get audiophile Verve records. And you can find these relatively inexpensive these days. And I found when I have acquired these, most of them I got in the day as promos back in the late 70s. But if you buy them now, they're fairly inexpensive, anywhere from $10 to $20-ish. And they're double albums. And usually they're really well, they're not original covers of the music. But I tell you, don't get squirreled in. That's the second time I've said squirreled on this video. I never use that term. But don't get, don't just go for the high-end jazz rare shit. This is good. This is beautiful music. Verve, Norman Granz music is really great. Now another series I did, again, look at the featured series and you can get more in depth to all these artists and labels I'm showing. Remember these? Those of you of a certain age, when you would buy a Warner Brothers record, you'd get this insert. The biggest, best bargains, the Warner Brothers loss leader. You would send away for $1 per record, and all of them were 2 record sets. I think they had a box set later. I have almost all of them. And the lost leaders, I actually sent away for these when I was a kid, when I used to get these, because they were amazing samplers. You'd have Zappa and Black Sabbath and Van Morrison and Van Dyke Parks. And these are just 2 of them. 1969 Warner Reprise Record Show, double album. And this is another one, Menu Hot Platters. And they were very innovative, had great humorous liner notes. But this has the Beach Boys, the Kinks, Deep Purple, John Baldry, T-Rex, Randy Newman, Jackie Lomax, Norman Greenbaum, Gordon Lightfoot, Ron Nagel, Ry Cooder, Mother Earth. And every once in a while, there were songs that were B-sides of singles. So there's a wealth of rarities here. So I have almost all these, but if I didn't have them, I would pick these up. And this one, for instance, there's Jeff and Maria Muldaur, there's Doug Kershaw, The Grateful Dead, Neil Young, the Everly Brothers, and let's see, Jethro Tull, the Fugs, Frank Zappa, the Kinks, Fats Domino, the Blue Velvet Band, Theodore Bickel, the folk singer, John Renbourn, Joni Mitchell, Bert Jansch, Peter, Paul and Mary, and Randy Newman and Ella Fitzgerald, Hamilton Camp, and on. So there's a series showcasing my collection of the Warner Brothers lost leaders. And of course, there's a plethora of Beatles content. You can go in the feature artist there, and also there's a whole Beatle-related section of early videos where you can see features on John Lennon, McCartney, in the joint videos. There's one on McCartney, also in the Beatle collection, obviously George Harrison. So feature artists, Beatle-related. And one of my favorites, it's just a showcase to the music of Walking on Thin Ice. There's a fun feature of one of the best songs by Yoko Ono, Walking on Thin Ice, and I showcase her entire catalog. This is Star Piece, and of course the jazz drummer Tony Williams appears on this album. This is from 1985. So that's an overview. That's Mazzy's index, Mazzy's contents, whatever I'm going to call this thing. Go look at earlier full discographies of any of these artists, and you might find an artist or a record maybe you missed by a particular artist. So if you have any requests, put them down here. I'm going to continue to do these. I haven't done a feature artist in a while, so I'll continue. Anyway, I really appreciate everyone's comments and viewership, and thank you so much, vinyl community, and everyone in the world beyond that community. Mazzy loves you. Take care.